Is it working? Is it working? Okay, I'm here. So we will have a new comment section. I have switched my microphone. Somebody pop in and say, yes, I can hear you. Okay, nobody's there. All right. Somebody tell everybody else to go to the new live. We are here. We are figuring it out together. We are totally, totally not stressing at all. Okay, somebody's there. I switched my microphones. Are you able to hear me now? Pop it in the comments. Hi, whoever else just popped on. So I was saying I switched out. Oh, yay. Okay, good. Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you guys for coming back. Okay, now, now we can get into the questions. So, what you did not hear before was all the technical challenges and going through all of the AI help and searching how to do it. And I just couldn't get that go live button to pop up. And it was looking for one more piece of information. And also, I switched over to Google Chrome because it's like sometimes that works better. So, before when I've gone live, y'all, I literally just hit post, go live, and that was it. But working from a page, I guess, works a little differently. So thank you, thank you, thank you for coming. Thank you for your patience. I super, super appreciate it. So if you have a question about writing, about my books, about whatever, pop it down in the comments and that will add you to more entries into the raffle and I'll answer them. So I'm going to go to the questions that were submitted ahead of time first. And what you didn't hear earlier, because I already started answering this question, was when is your next local book signing? And that is a phenomenal question and something that I've got to get on the books. So I need to sit down with my calendar for the rest of the year and make that happen because I love, love, love doing live events. Now, my latest series does not have paperback options yet, so that's a little downer for doing a book signing because you can't sign digital books. But I have a bunch of print of my children's books and my mysteries and my cozies and all of those. So I would love to do a book signing sometime in the near future. So I love that question. The next question is, will you introduce politics in future works? So, you guys that are here know, but somebody watching later may not know that I was elected to local office last year. So, I have dove into the crazy, interesting world of politics. It's something else. It's not anything I expected. And so it's fun. I've learned so, so much. But I will say, I actually have a book that has some politics in it. So that was written way before I ever anticipated running. And that is Death at Yorktown, I believe. It's funny. My different cozies start to run together, but I'm pretty sure it's Death at Yorktown. I was just reading a little bit of that and a little bit of Death at Williamsburg the other day because I was brushing up on them and looking some information up for the next book in that series, which is what I started on this weekend. And so, will it play a role in future books? Um, it probably will. um, I have learned a lot of at least local and statewide inner workings, and there is a lot there to work with to build plots and tension. So I'll just leave it at that. All right, Deborah, when you started writing a book, how did you start forming your ideas on paper or did you record your ideas? So, I started writing in 2005 2005. So those little handheld recorders with the little bitty tapes existed, and I did use that sometimes. Oh gosh, not even 2005. I guess I started speaking around 2010 and got one, but there were no smartphones, and the only thing you really had to record yourself was we had a digital tape recorder, so actual physical tapes. So I just sat down initially with pen and paper. So for me, and I still a lot of times. So I actually have a notebook sitting right here, and it's got some different things. So right there are notes to my next cozy, and that's just so. And I probably have 3 or 4 notebooks that have different sets of notes. I really like to do brainstorming with pen and paper so that I can just get all the ideas down. Sometimes I'll actually write pen and paper, but because it's so much faster, I convert then to just doing a Word document and start typing. And it really kind of um, depends. Nonfiction and fiction are a little different. You really want to have some kind of outline either way, though. You want to have an order of your main ideas. So it reminds me of what I hated in high school about writing papers, which is come up with your thesis statement and then come up with your main ideas and then come up with your sub ideas and make sure it's all in good order and then you flesh it out and write it. But really, that's been super helpful for me to spend that time, usually handwriting and just brainstorming. And then I actually use Excel spreadsheets to keep track of the order of my books. For my 9 book series, I have this massive spreadsheet with probably 13 or 14 tabs on it because each book has its own tab, and then there's a characters only tab, and then there's a tab because it covers so much story over so many years that holds like all the kids and how old they are in book 1 and then how old they are in each subsequent books because I couldn't keep track of the kids that ended up being in that story and what age they were in book 6 if I introduced them in book 2. And so it actually says what year each book is written in, what season each book is written in. So, my first couple of books, I did not keep notes. And when I was doing sequels to them, I would have to go back and reread the book because my brain just didn't log those details. So, copious notes, I like to handwrite and then convert it over to a Word document and then Excel for keeping track of the order of the chapters. So, that's how I started. And then I just wrote, and wrote. And then I studied writing. I talked to other people who wrote and who were published. I went to conferences and seminars and workshops and just kept working at it because it did not come natural to me. So, love that question. And let's see, have you included name dropping? Oh, well, that could go a couple of different directions. Like, does the character name drop? I don't think I've named any famous people in any of my books. I can't recall any. All my characters are made up. Now, I will occasionally use a name, occasionally, okay, more than occasionally, I will use names of people that I know and admire. I'm really careful how I pair them up with characters. I actually had a character, a husband to one of my characters was named a certain name, and that husband ended up being a scoundrel, so I had to change his name because it was the name of a friend of mine who I highly respect. And so I am careful to also use have the baby names app on my phone. So I might, I'm building my characters and I'm like, well, I can't think of a unique name, but I'd really like it to start with P. So then I'll look up girl names with P. And I'll do that for surnames too, based on like heritage or the time frame. So I'm working on a book in the 80s, so a lot of my characters were born in the 60s and some even in the 30s and 40s. So just looking up like top 100 names from those eras. So I have a whole lot of different ways that I find character names, but I don't know if that's the type of name dropping that this question was referring to. But I find that fun to build characters and find unique names and be able to use names that both I know and don't know. All right, so Heather, is there a character you've written who is most like you? So I would say Sarah, who is the main character in Hearing Whispers and Open Arms, started out a lot like me. There's a lot of her that is pieces of me, even bits of her story. But she definitely became her own person. One of the fun things is she is a librarian, but also a math girl. And I was totally a math girl in school, but I became a writer. So that little bit is definitely me. She has parents who were divorced as a young woman, and so that also is something that I went through and just dealing with. So she also, not to give too much away because it happens pretty early in the book, but she's also betrayed by her fiance, and that too is something that I went through when I was a young woman just freshly in college. So yeah, so she has a lot of character traits, but I give probably at least one character trait, at least to all the women in my stories. I give them one thing that is similar to me, and it could be something super super small. So like my cozy mysteries, the main character is Suzanne, and Suzanne loves Dr. Pepper. Loves, and she loves that first sip where your nose burns and your eyes water, and that is definitely a me thing. But I now have to live vicariously through her because I don't drink Dr. Pepper anymore as a type 1 diabetic. It's not worth all that sugar and all of those calories. And so, yeah, so I put little pieces. I'm trying to think some of my other characters. I have one that's an artist. That is not me at all. I cannot draw a stick figure that looks anything like a person. So, but there are just other things, life experiences, life lessons, learning to lean on the Lord in hard times and recognizing how far you've come and how far you have yet to go. I would say Emma goes through that. So you haven't read Emma's story. Emma's book 7 and 8. We're working on the polishing of that manuscript or those manuscripts right now. So that's definitely Jessica. So she's books 3 and 4 in my Fruit of the Spirit series. So she tends to be very excitable and mouthy, and that might fit. That might fit. So Katie is probably the one least like me. She's very optimistic. She's very enthusiastic about life and very optimistic and just wants to jump in and to be helpful. So, yeah, so she got those traits from me, but a lot of other people that I know too. So, another question from Lane. Being an author of fiction and nonfiction, what are some books in those genres, not yours, that you would recommend to read? I really like, um, I am blanking on the name. I've been really bad at reading the last year and a half. I can't imagine why I've fallen off the wagon, despite the fact that there's like a whole stack of books sitting beside my bed. I just finished a book by Colleen Cobble. She's a good mystery Christian author. Uh, I don't like repetition in reading, and so sometimes I'll read books I really like. Still like Vicky Castell. I like her because she has a variety of books. She actually has a science fiction young adult series that's Christian based, and I find it super fun. And then she also writes romance, and she had one book, which is kind of my dream one day. She goes from some characters in the 1800s all the way through the late 1900s, and I just thought that was really cool to follow that family through those generations. So Vicky Castell, Colleen Cobble, Roseanne White. So I like her books. I haven't read any of her new things. I read enough of hers where I was starting to really, really see the patterns and be able to guess what was going to happen. Nonfiction. So Jen Wilkin, I really like Jen Wilkin's book. She's a very solid Christian nonfiction author. Other nonfictions, um, trying to think of anything that has stood out. So I recently read Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. It was good. There was a lot of things you can take away from it. I think I skipped probably half of the book because of the stories, and I just didn't need five stories to teach me the same good habit. So yeah, so nonfiction was, is there anything else that has really stood out? Probably not so much. I mean, I've read a lot. Made to Crave, Lisa Turkhurst and Made to Crave, and she has some other good books that she's written. Oh, Corey Ten Boom's autobiographies. She has a set of three. Those I highly recommend. They're very powerful. So there's a few recommendations. Thanks for the question. What can you tell us about what you are working on right now without giving away too much? So, I am working on Suzanne's backstory. So, Suzanne is my private investigator who is the main protagonist in my Cozy Mysteries. And even though I have a couple plotted out for like sequels to go to go further in her story, I just was brainstorming and looking for something to offer that could just be a gift to my readers. And I was like, what better than Suzanne's backstory? Like, why did she become a private investigator? What was her first case like? How did her family feel about it? Especially since, and if you've read, you'll know she's a widow, especially since she does this not long after her husband dies. So, of course, they think she's crazy. So I'm working on that. I am working on the next Terrence Cooper book. So it has been kind of floating around, no pun intended, when you find out the title. It's been floating around in my mind for a couple of years. I have a general outline, but it's Body on the Beach. So you can imagine what the mystery is here locally we have a couple of beaches, and early beachgoers go to Jamestown Beach, and there's a body. And so Officer Cooper's the one that responds and starts investigating. And also at the same time, someone who's connected to him through some family friends is working at a house doing landscaping, like expensive, nice, like 60, 70, $80,000 landscaping, and starts noticing some odd things. And so you'll have to see how those two things come together and Body on the Beach when that comes out in a couple of years. Another question is, have I written any books that are centered around Christmas time? So, In an Instant is set around Christmas time in Colonial Williamsburg, which makes it super fun for those who are familiar with CW around Christmas time. But three of my cozy mystery brainstorms that I have a title for, I have a main plot for, and just haven't sat down and written are Christmas mystery stories. So I also resurrected a romance book recently. It wasn't even on my list. I had completely forgot about it. I wrote it in 2014. I submitted it to an agent. She's like, it's a really good story, but it needs more attention. And shortly after that, we started building a house and I got a contract for in an instant. So my focus was just in other places. So 12 years later, I am coming back to that. And because the first romance story, the first get together, fall in love story, is a girl who has six siblings, there will be six more books in that series. And I imagine that some of those will focus around Christmas time. So, fun question. I always say I'm going to do a Christmas story, and then I think about it around October, and then November and December are just crazy. And then I'm like, well, January is not the time to write a Christmas story, and I should just go ahead and do it. But since I have about 12 or 14 books that are waiting to get finished, they're patiently waiting. Oh, and then I mentioned my two children's books I'm working on. So one is a ABC book that talks about God's character. So it's the ABCs of God's character, and I'm working on putting that together. And then I have Zara the Zookeeper, and I'm working with a young lady who's illustrating that. And so it just takes time. Children's books take a lot more time because you have to have pictures to go with the story. Next question. Oh, how do you imply romance and not get graphic? So I love, love, love this question. So while I don't have any books that are just romance, obviously when you're talking about couples that are getting together or they're married and they're still in love, like you want to have some romance in there. And about a year ago, the concept of closed door romance started popping up in my Instagram feed, and I'm like, oh, that's the name for it. And it's because there are people looking for romance that doesn't get graphic. And so I think it's just thinking about how you can show your characters expressing their love for one another in sweet ways and then close the door. And so you don't go too far into creating images, and everybody knows what happens with especially married people who love each other. And so that's the values that we want to promote. And so I'm just really careful about, there can be some teasing, there can be even between like friends and talking about their marriages, but we just don't get specific, and we just keep it sweet and gentle and real, but behind the closed door, if that makes sense. Hope that makes sense. Let me know if that makes sense. Comment if you get what I'm saying. How can you bring specific history into story and not get off track in your plot? This is something that I really, really had to work on when I became an author. My first book, when I sat down to write it, I had like 3 pages of backstory. And then I got feedback on it, and I was like, oh, yeah, that is awful. So, a lot of times you can have your character just remember something. Say they are driving in the car and something has triggered a memory. I think we've all been there. You know, they see a car that looks like, their best friend in high school, and it makes them think about the argument they had that, destroyed their friendship. Or they, wake up early in the morning and this thing is really bothering. And so, um, so you just put little bits and pieces, or in conversations. Conversations are a really good way. So one of my books refers to something that happened a book a few before that, and one of the ladies was like, oh, do you remember the time when? And it's like 2 or 3 sentences. And so it brings that history between those friends up in a very casual and natural way. Do you intend to solve all issues in a mystery book? No. So between In an Instant and A Single Shot, there's actually a piece of the story that is not finished, but I bring it to more of a conclusion in A Single Shot. So you don't get the whole rest of the story quite yet, but but you get most of it. And it's saying something about, I don't know. It's saying it's low, I don't know, low speed or something. So, hey, y'all, I lost internet this afternoon for about half an hour, so I was not freaking out. But I'm just glad we have internet. I'm glad we figured out all the issues, and I am super, super glad you're here. So, y'all have been so good at doing questions and sharing those things with me. So I really, really appreciate it. And I hope I'm not talking too fast because I'm trying to get everything in. So a couple more questions here. Do you intend? Oh, okay, got that one. Do you? Okay. So, writing a series, I want to continue connection to a fictional character. So, that is why book three for Terrence Cooper is plotted out and why I will be working on that this year because I too like to follow a character. I don't know how many books he will have. I guess it will kind of depend on how many ideas I have and how many times my publisher says, yep, we want another one. Um, then there's my 9 book series. The first 6 are out, the Fruit of the Spirit series. So that's super fun because it's 4 friends, and each of 2 books follows one of the friends, but obviously all the other friends are in the books. And then book 9 kind of wraps up most of their stories, but there are 3 stories that are not completed. And so that is definitely on my list. And what I plan to do is write those stories eventually. So I love series. Obviously, my Cozy Mystery series has the same protagonist in it. And so she has 5 books, getting ready to be 6. And hopefully by next year, maybe 10. We'll see. We'll see. I'm really motivated and not as distracted right now, so I hope to go with that. So, let's see. When people are encouraging others to write, they say either write every day or write when you're inspired. Which do you ascribe to? And that's from Lane again. Thank you. And thank you, Heather. I appreciate that. So there's a little bit of both, honestly. I love to write when I'm inspired. That's why I'm working on this prequel, and it's a new idea, and I'm really focused on it. And it's definitely easier to sit down and write for 2 or 3 hours when I'm inspired. But when there's a book due, or I've promised a book, or I just know that I have to keep plugging along, then I have to set my own personal deadlines. So I don't write every day because every day is different. There are some days I'm home all day. There are some days I'm gone half the day. There are some days I'm gone from 8 in the morning until 9 at night. So obviously that doesn't leave room for writing every day. I do have more time to write that I don't always use wisely, and I think that's where the inspiration piece comes in. But what I find is when I make myself sit down and write, even if I say, I'm gonna get 1,000 words today, and I usually don't do time because being ADHD, time just doesn't work well with me. But like a hard, concrete, and you think time's concrete, but when you lose track of time and you have no awareness of time, like 5 minutes feels like an hour or an hour feels like 5 minutes. That's just not a good deadline for me. That will probably work for someone else. But I set limits. So I'm going to write 1,000 words today or 3,000 words today. And when I make myself do that, what I find is I get reinvigorated about the story and then I want to write. Now, sometimes it happens in a day, sometimes it happens in a week or two. So I think it's a both and. I think absolute when you have inspiration and you're at all able to sit down and write, just do it. Whether you have pen and paper, whether you have a laptop, whether you have your notes app on your phone and you just do voice to text. There's so many tools. Google, I think Google Docs will let you do voice to text too on your phone. And so I love to do all the above, and there definitely is discipline that has to play a role if you're gonna finish books. Let's see, blah blah blah. Do you reveal to friend that you modeled a character after him or her? So normally I don't have to. I never make one person that is exactly like a real person unless there is a book series that I've started that will be based on some real people who agreed to it. And those it's still going to be a fiction book, but those characters will more line up. But I have gotten text messages. I'm reading this book and feel called out because that friend will recognize the little piece of them, the little character trait or thing that they say that I've put in the book. So that's a fun question too. And if you are on here and you have read one of my books and seen yourself, you can just do a little raised hand there in the comments. As you assemble main characters for a novel, do you save those cut out for other projects? So, I think what that question is asking is as I'm brainstorming and building characters, and maybe I don't save those cut out for other projects. Okay. So sometimes characters will switch books, and sometimes characters will show up in other books. So Officer Terrence Cooper shows up in one of my Fruit of the Spirit books. So there is something that happens, and the police are called, and a detective shows up, and obviously it has to be Officer Cooper. So I will do that. I will switch or add characters from one series to another. I just find it fun, and especially when, I mean, my mysteries, and Fruit of the Spirit are all written in the Williamsburg area. And so, I mean, they could run into each other. It's not that big of a community. So, yeah, that's fun. And I do sometimes save a character. So, I just came across, I think it's in this notebook actually, where I have like a list of 4 characters and I didn't write a title on the page. I don't have any plot information on the page. And I'm like, it's probably been 3 or 4 years since I wrote these down. I have no idea what book they're supposed to go to. Like, no clue. So I just like did a tab. Oh, it is. And I just said miscellaneous characters. I'll use them someday in some story. I don't know what it will be, but I have them. I have their names. I have their physical descriptions. I have a little of their history and their background. So, you know, we'll see. We'll use them someday. So, yes, Gail, I knew you would raise your hand. Leanne's not on here. I don't know where she is, but she would be raising her hand too. Uh, you are a professing Christian. How do you get inspiration on fictional villains? Oh, such a good question. So, really, a lot of it just has to do um, with just observing life. So, when you've lived enough life, then you see evil and you experience evil. You see the repercussions of evil. You see the heart of man. Um, there's just so much. There's just so much and I'm just popping in some names here in the raffle drawing. Um, okay, wanted to make sure to get that one in too. All right, there we go. So, yeah, so there's just so much that we experience in the world. So to create a villain is really not hard. I also like crime fiction. So I've read a lot of mysteries and suspense. I've watched a lot of crime TV shows. I've done some true crime. And so I read the news. And so I think it's just like it's not hard for me to do that because I, I see evil. Now, my books are all clean. So, like, there are times, you have people who are not believers and they'll say things or do things that are something we don't want to glorify in books or even sometimes expose ourselves to. And so, what I do with that is just like a basic, he let loose a string of words that my mama would, slap me for, or, something like that. Or, he cussed her out, or you just allude to the sinful behavior. There's even one book where a young woman gets an abortion. And so I talk about it in a way where I show the destruction of those involved and the compassion of those who want to help her and the regret that she lives with. And so we just talk about, and she's not necessarily a villain. Um, Even though she's not a very nice person, but she's also just a very broken person. So, yeah, so just I guess I've learned to balance and just kind of deal with the truth of the evil in the world without letting it take over. So that is all of the pre submitted questions. So we still have a few minutes before 8, and I will do my drawing right at 8. I need to make sure I haven't missed anybody who has been on. Let's see. Okay. So let's see if it will tell me who is on. If you are on and you have not commented, go ahead and comment because I cannot see who you are. Isn't that weird? I can see how many viewers we have and how many comments we have, but cannot pull up a list. There was something else I was looking for today, and I was trying to find it and couldn't find it. And I looked it up, and Facebook's like, nope, we've changed that setting. You can no longer look that up. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I don't have to know that, I guess. We can just roll with it. So we're learning to roll with all sorts of things today. So, any other book questions specifically about writing or about my books? No, I do not know when books 7 through 9 are going to come out because, like I said, we are polishing them up. I actually need to check with my editor because I emailed her last week about a question on one of them and haven't heard back, which I'm sure she's a busy lady too. So, but I've had emails slip through and not see them or say, "Oh, I'm going to reply to that," and forgot to get back to it. So I know that happens. So okay, if we're all done, let's see. Nobody else is popping up. No more questions. I'm going to throw everybody's name in the raffle. All right. All right. And so, you're welcome. I love talking about writing. I really I did a couple of conferences in the last few years where I got to go to present and talk with other new writers and just love doing that. Obviously, didn't do it this year. Haven't applied for any next year yet, so we'll see what happens. Um, so let's get. We're going to put everybody's name in. And we're going to have actually Excel. Did you guys know this? Excel spreadsheets will do a random drawing from a list for you. It's very cool. I had to watch a YouTube video, which is why I didn't start trying the live until 5 till. But number 93 won. So 93 is Deborah. Deborah, congratulations. So everybody just got listed by number on that Excel spreadsheet, and then there's a formula that you use and it just picks a number. So I just had to scroll down. So, Deborah, I will have a full set of my cozy mysteries for you next time I see you. And I hope you enjoy them. And thank you guys so much for coming. And oh my goodness, thank you for your patience. I'm really, really grateful that you hung in there while I was figuring out that last little piece of information that I had to add in so that we could actually go live. And now I know the process. So we're good to go. So I will probably do this again. I also like the idea of doing an in person book event. So I'll check my calendar and see what we can't make happen. So thank you guys so much. I actually wish I could hear you. I might have to figure out how to use Zoom so that I can actually talk to you, unless that would make you not come because that would have you talking to me. So maybe you just like it this way. So pop in the chat before you go. Facebook Live again or Zoom so we can talk to you. You have your chance to vote. So thank you guys and have a fabulous, fabulous weekend. Thank you so much. Or weekend. Look at me. It's Monday. Week. Have a fabulous week and a fabulous evening. Bye, guys.